Hello and welcome to Watchworthy. It's your boy, Brother Ash.
And I'm Miss Christy.
And today we're going to be discussing the documentary South to Black Power, a 2023 HBO Max original. This is based on New York Times journalist Charles M. Blow's book, The Devil You Know, a Black Power Manifesto, if you will.
Yeah.
So the reasons why we chose this doc is that we have friends and family who have recently moved to Maryland and North Carolina. So we're interested to learn more about this trend and how much of a trend it is compared to how much of a political move that it is. This documentary was very informative, and I'm glad we got a chance to watch it. So
during Black History Month?
Yeah. So while you watch or while you listen to our podcast, our poll question will be for all of our Spotify listeners: which state would you move to as a part of the second Great Migration?
Yeah.
So if all colored black people, I'm cool.
Colored.
I'm cool if the Latinos and everybody else come with us.
Just for black people.
Just for black people? Okay. Well, all right, fine. So which state would you want to go to? Like, if we all agreed as black people, like, we're gonna go to Atlanta, we're gonna go to North Carolina, what would be your state?
All right. Well, let's get into Charles Blow's background, just so you guys know, like, okay, is this just some random black guy who wrote a book? No, he is a scholar. He is a scholar and writer for the New York Times for 25 years, so we definitely wanted to get his expertise and his insight on why black people are moving south, basically. So Charles grew up in Louisiana himself, and he had a great experience at school because of black women. So shout out to black women, shout out to black teachers. He said that he had a really good upbringing in school and everything, had a good education. And so he went on to Grambling State University, which is a HBCU. And even his choice in staying in state and going to that school, like, he wanted to make an impact in his community. And so Charles...
I also noticed he pledged the greatest fraternity in the world while he was in college. To the good noops.
Yes, we did like to see that in the documentary as well. And so Charles, he said that he moved for opportunity. Why do people move in the first place? Why do people move from state to state? Which, by the way, this documentary really reminded me, I guess, that we're not stuck to one state in America. I don't know how it is in other countries, but you could just pick up and move to California if you want to.
I will go to Hawaii, honestly, but I just feel
they don't want us.
Oh, damn. I thought they were nice and all, friendly over there.
I mean, I think they are, but I think tourism has ruined the island, so that's the other thing.
I'm just more so concerned about the, volcanoes and all of that stuff.
That's something you have to worry about when you're moving around because you're going to a new environment you don't know. But Charles decided to make that move, so he actually decided to go from Louisiana to New York City, Damn. And that's where he got it was a big culture shock, I'm sure.
Red flag.
What?
That's such a huge move. Like, imagine being in, like, the South your whole life, and your first move is, like, New York City.
Actually, that was his second move. I lied. He said that he moved to Detroit first, which is still crazy.
Yeah, that's right.
But he went from Detroit to New York, and... that's still a culture shock from moving from the South, yeah.
Okay.
And so he talked about with his mom, he had a moment in the documentary, like, how she even had to move before his time and how our grandparents had to move. I don't know about, I think your family's Bahamas to Florida and...
yeah.
And my family was like Africa to Arkansas to Illinois, so we're still learning about that history. And in the documentary, it was cool that he still had his mom to share that knowledge. She's like 80-something years old. And so after college, he decided that he wanted to, work at New York Times. He did that in the 1990s. And that was a big deal for a black man to be the head of a department in the 1990s, especially in journalism. We know that it's very whitewashed. But this is why I'm glad that we have people who go from journalist to author to documentary film to tell these stories and get the word out. Because I definitely wasn't reading the New York Times in the 90s, so I never heard of Charles Blow, sorry. But it's cool that he, is here now and he's trying to spread the word about this. And so the documentary, it was a lot of live interviews and stuff. It was a lot of him talking to historians and, him kind of going on his book tour. So it wasn't like the traditional documentary that we normally watch. This isn't about to be a biographical documentary on Charles Blow, but rather the concept that he is presenting of the Second Great Migration. And so after living in New York City and doing the New York Times thing, Charles moved to Atlanta. And that's when it really opened his eyes, like, wow, there's black people over here, black people over there.
Another success story from moving to Atlanta.
Right, after the Tyler Perry documentary
Everybody
we just did.
moves to Atlanta.
Right. And so Charles felt the same way. He was like, wait, maybe I'm onto something here. What if other successful black people move from the big cities to the South? And so Charles is really proposing the second Great Migration, he calls it. We know that the Great Migration was, after slavery when black people had to flee. Or they didn't have to, but they chose to. And so Charles is saying, why don't black people specifically choose to move to these cities, or these states rather? Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and even Delaware. I was surprised to see Delaware still counts as the southeast, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't consider it nobody's South. I just think maybe that's a state that has potential to be like a higher percentage of black people and black wellness there because like there's no property tax. No, there's no like tax in Delaware.
There's no sales tax.
And there's just also like a good amount of land and opportunity for black people to come because it is more affordable than a lot of other states.
Yeah, so throughout the documentary, he was sharing that these states that we just listed, they're already at least 30% black. So that's why he sees these as like the most progress can be made here. And so even Brother Ash and I, we live together, obviously, and we've thought about maybe New Jersey ain't it anymore,
I know New Jersey not it. I'm just trying to figure out a way to get up out this motherfucker.
But which state will we move to? We don't know, so that's the question we're asking you guys, too. But to him, he wants to make things clear. The book is called a Black Power Manifesto. That scares people. Unfortunately, the term Black Power has a bad connotation. People think it's too radical, whatever. But to him, Charles, he's saying that Black Power just means black people have the power to govern themselves. So he's talking about that political power specifically. Because think about it. All these laws throughout history have been made to keep black people down.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a say. So now he's saying by changing our physical location, we can have an influence on the politics there. And so it really is groundbreaking. It's like, it's not groundbreaking, but it's like, why didn't we think of that before, Mm-hmm. Or we're clearly starting to, because people are starting to move. And that's why he wrote this book in the first place. And so he was talking about how state power is really essential to America's structure. If we really think about it, the last couple elections have opened my eyes to the fact that the national election don't mean shit. I'm sorry. I'm going to still vote and make sure y'all still vote too. But he's saying the work is really done in your state and then even lower in your cities and your counties. And so he was talking about how there's no cities in the Constitution. That was a great point to be made. It's really all about that state power. And so Charles is proposing, let's skip over the begging, the pleading, the fighting with America, this dance that we do where
he said, I'm tired of marching.
Yeah, he literally said, I'm tired of marching. And I am too. I've definitely said that on the podcast before. Like, sometimes as a black person, it's bittersweet because you see the progress, but it's like 3 steps forward, 5 steps back.
Yeah.
So he said, let's cut all that out and just move. And that could start to change things. So this is kind of like a reverse migration that is already happening. And he said, I'm just giving it a boost. And we're giving it a boost now by talking about it, watching this documentary.